We are in a sermon series right now called Out of the Shadows. And what I'm talking about those dark places in your life, those dark areas that keep us up at night that we normally don't even talk about. I was trying to talk about them in a practical way and to look at some basic passages of Scripture that might help us. Now, most of these areas are usually areas that we always struggle with. If you struggle with anger, you probably always struggle with anger. It's like for years, If you struggle with worry, it's years long. I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit more situational. Grief. Every one of you is going to experience grief at some point in your life. You might be experiencing grief now. You might be one that said, I don't know if I've really had grief. I really don't know what you're talking about. I could go through and ask, and there might be someone in here that'd say, well, my grandma died several years ago, and that was like sad. I don't know, is that grief? There's others in here that know it really well. You're like, I know grief all too well. In fact, it's dark. Grief is extreme, deep sorrow that just seems to linger. It goes for months and sometimes years, depending on the person. And it's any kind of loss. It can be a loss that you have from the death in a family. It can be going through a divorce. It can be when you move to a new location and you feel so out of sorts and you just miss your community, your church, your house. It can be terrible medical news that causes you to just go into grief. It can be losing friends. And one thing about grief is you can't compare our grief. I can't compare it and say, okay, who has the worst grief in here? Who has the most pain? You can't do that because all of our pain is so different and we relate to it differently. My wife and I had an experience that was like, we spent so many weeks talking about this one situation. We went to 2 different houses that were side by side, and both had experienced a big loss within of just like half an hour of each other. One, he had just gotten off the phone right before I knocked on the door. He had hung up the phone and just found out his brother had died. And I said, I am so sorry to hear that. And he said, oh, well, he was old. I said, oh, okay. But he's your brother? He's the older brother? He goes, no, he's a younger brother. I'm old too. I said, oh, okay. It was almost like he was already over it. I'm not questioning his love for his brother. That was just where he was at emotionally. The next house was a lady whose dog had just died. She had had the dog for a year, and she was destroyed. She was sobbing and weeping to the point where I helped her call her son and then waited around till her son showed up. 2 houses side by side. Her dog and her brother. And their responses were so different because it's not only our situations, it's also our personalities. It's how things are hitting us. Sometimes it deals with our age. Have you ever been around someone who's dealing with someone and they're younger than you and you thought, oh yeah, that's not a big deal, just wait till you get older? Because sometimes it deals with age, but grief is real. And so today I want to talk about grief. And here's one thing about grief, and this is where I was whenever I had my grief. This is about 15 years ago. It was 6 months after I'd buried my son. 6 months later, I was driving down Interstate 44 from Joplin to Mount Vernon, Missouri. And as I was driving, all of a sudden I had this flood of pain that was just as fresh as it was 6 months prior. And it was all right there again. And I pulled the truck over on the interstate, and all these semis were just driving by me. And I thought, I am never going to be happy again. This was my true thought. And I believed it. I was such a sincere thought. I realized it's been 6 months. And here I am, just as much in pain as I was 6 months ago when I went into that room and found my son. And that pain is still there, and it's so fresh, and I will never be happy again. That's what grief does, is it lingers so much longer than you're expecting, and it's this deep sorrow that stays with you. So, I've got good news today. It might be a sad topic, but this is a good news message. 2 Corinthians chapter 1. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 gives us very practical steps to dealing with grief. And so if you are dealing with grief, if you have a lot of sorrow in your life, this is a great message for you. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3 to 4. And I'm going to read my version. I did a different version on you. Sorry, Derek. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort. The God of all comfort. I'll get back to that. Who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. That's the NIV, Derek, if you want to catch up with me. I should have buzzed that to you too. I bet he's with the ESV there. This description of God gives him the title, the God of all comfort. What does that mean? Does anyone have an idea? I feel like there's something really profound with that verse. He's the God of all comfort. Let me throw out a couple of things, see if you like any of them. Here's option 1. There's no comfort outside of what God offers. God of all comfort. Is that what I'm supposed to take away? He's the God of all comfort. That's kind of insulting for someone who's not a Christian and goes, well, I've been comforted, but not by God. Well, yeah, sorry. God's the God of all comfort. So if you're comforted, God claims it. Is that what I'm reading here? He's the God of all comfort? Maybe it's like the kind of comfort. Hey, option 2, the God of all comfort, where there's so many different ways in which he comforts. He's the God of all comfort. He just rules over all the different methods that someone could be comforted. Maybe. Option number 3, maybe, and I just thought of this one this week as I'm trying to figure out what does that mean. It's maybe the all is more like a power punch. He's the God of great comfort. He's the God of all comfort, just a power punch. You didn't talk about comfort? Yeah, he's not the God of comfort. He's the God of great comfort. He really comforts. Is it like a power punch? Or the God of all comfort. What am I supposed to take away from that? Honestly, I dug and I went, I'm pretty sure there's gold at the bottom of that. I never dug deep enough. I just couldn't get there. I didn't know quite what that meant, but I found a big diamond on the way. And I don't know exactly what that phrase means, but I do know this. I know this is telling me that when I hurt, God hurts. When you are in pain, God is in pain. When you are suffering, God is suffering. That's the point here. Now, let's have an honesty test. I just want you to be really honest. Have you ever seen someone who is truly in pain and you rolled your eyes, whether literally or figuratively? You saw the pain and you're like, oh, good grief. Has anyone ever done that? Just a couple honest people. I've done that, okay? I've seen, you walk by and there's a group of women who are crying. You're like, what's going on there? Oh, Irma's cat died last week and she's just really still upset about it. Oh, good grief. Oh, come on. It's a cat. come on, get over it already. Well, she really loved the cat, and it was meant so much to her, and she didn't have kids, and this. Oh, come on. Have you ever, or maybe it's someone at some teenager that was telling you the problem in their life, and they're like, really, this and this and this and this, and you're going, oh, come on. This is nothing. You haven't experienced life. This is not a problem, okay? Someday you'll have real problems. This is not a real problem. Have you ever done that? Where you just look at someone else's pain and you minimize it because you're thinking, I don't get it, but I definitely don't have I don't even have sympathy. I don't have any empathy. I don't have any sympathy. I've got nothing here. All I have are eye rolls, okay? That's it. God is not a God of eye rolls. And whatever you're going through, whatever pain you have, he's not going, oh, good grief, get over it already. Are you still on that? How long has it been? It's time for you to grow up. It's time for you. No, God's a God of compassion and the God of all comfort. Whatever else it means that God hurts whenever you hurt. And so if there's an idea in your head, if there's this notion that you're going, oh, God probably doesn't understand, or God probably doesn't care, I want you to take that notion and throw it out the door. That's not the truth. The truth is God does hurt for you. When you're crying, he's crying. And when you're grieving, he's grieving. He shares your pain. I want to move to the next phrase. And it said that he is the God of all comfort who comforts us in all our troubles. God is the God of all comfort, and he actually comforts us in all our troubles. That it's not just emotion that he has for us. It's not that he's from a distance going, ooh, I feel your pain, I have this empathy. But he actually comes close. The word for comfort is the Greek word for encouragement. He comes close and actually encourages you when you hurt. That there's a very real way in which God is drawing close to his children to heal you, to strengthen you. And God is equipped to help you in no matter what your trial or trouble or suffering is. Whatever you're grieving, he's equipped to help. I get two more facts from this that I'd just like to share. Who comforts us in all our troubles. This God of all comfort, he comforts you in all your troubles. It means these two things. One, he will be there for you no matter how unique you think your pain is. That no one else has had news like this. No one else has suffered with this kind of a horrendous tragedy. No one else can relate to me. It's so much to bear. No matter how unique your pain, he's the God of all comfort who comforts in all our troubles. And number two, it doesn't matter how unique your pain is, and it doesn't matter the magnitude of your pain. How deep and pained you are. He can help. He comes in and he goes, yeah, even though it's this great pain and it feels like more than you can bear, I'm God. I can carry the weight. And I can come in and I can encourage you and comfort you right now. So the real question is how does he do this? How does God comfort us? Is it this inward mystical thing? Well, the verse even tells us, and it's very practical. There's something that you have to do to receive this healing. It says that God comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble. That the God of all comfort is comforting us in all our troubles so that you can now go and comfort others in all their troubles. So a few years ago, I was driving to the hospital. I was racing to the hospital. I had just gotten news that a young family in our church had had a miscarriage. She was 38 weeks along. And my phone rang as I was getting closer to the hospital. It was my secretary. And she said, "Darren, you need to turn around. You can't go to the hospital right now." I said, "Why is that?" She said, "Well, they called. They said they don't want to see anyone. They want to keep everyone away." I said, okay, thank you. I hung up the phone and I went to the hospital. Because I remember how much I didn't want anyone around me. I wanted everyone gone. Get away from me. I didn't know what to do. I went to the hospital. I went up to their floor and I came into a room where this mother was sitting there, this young mother. She's laying on her bed, and there were two chairs, and he was sitting in one chair, and I came over, and when they looked up and saw me, both of them said my name at the same time. They said, "Darren," almost like there was this desperation in their voice. And I came over, and I sat down, and I looked at them, and he said, "Can you help us? We have to make a decision." I said, "Okay." I said, "The doctor just left, and the doctor said that they can do this procedure where they can take out the baby, but there won't be a body left. It'll just basically turn the body into like liquid or something, and then it'll be gone. Or she can deliver a stillborn baby." I said, "Okay." And as they said this is like a horrible question, isn't it? Help us out here. What should we do? But I'm sitting there going, I can help. I can't think of anyone else in the world that's as equipped as I am. I can do this. This one's mine. I was made for this moment right here. I have the wisdom and I have the love and the compassion and the heartache to give you something that's going to be helpful for you at this horrible place in your life. I didn't say this. This is all what I was thinking as part of me was overjoyed in the midst of this horrible tragedy that I could offer something. And I said, "Well, let me tell you two things. First, I want to let you know that everyone loves you so much that no matter what you decide, no matter what decision you make here or even with other decisions that might need to be made in the next few more days, no one's ever going to think ill of you for whatever decisions you make right now because everyone's just hurting for you. So just get rid of any stress or fear with that. And two, what you need to know and what I learned is that I was not the only one in pain. There's more people hurting than just both of you right now. Your parents are hurting. Your siblings are hurting. Your family members are hurting. Your friends are hurting. Your pastor is hurting. Your church is hurting. Your neighbors are hurting. You have all these people that are going to be hurting for you, and they are right now. They don't know what to do, and they're going to need to grieve, and they're going to need to hurt. So my advice to you is to think through, how could you help them grieve? And both of them went, "Oh, thank you." And it's like they knew right from that what they had to do. And so they delivered their child who had died. And the thing is, though, is what happens in our Christian walk is the same thing that kind of happened to Jesus, if you think about it, where he brought us salvation through his suffering. He gave us life by emptying out his life. He bled so that we could live. And he brought about this great healing through great suffering. And that's what we do as Christians. That's when God comes in and truly gives us healing in our heart, when we stop focusing so much on what I'm going through, and instead I get up and I look around and I go out to help someone else and what they're going through. That's when God starts to heal me. And that's when God will start to heal you. When you stop focusing so much on your sorrow and your pain, and you look over and you find someone else who's going through something that's kind of similar, something that's kind of just as painful, and you minister to them, that's when God blesses your life and gives you strength and heals you. He's the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our trials so that we can go out and comfort those in any trial. That's how it all works. Now, have you ever been to a funeral and you didn't have anything to say? And you're standing there, you're like, what am I going to say to this person? I don't know. And then you finally get up into the line, you go over and shake their hand, and you say this to them: if you need anything, I mean anything at all, if you need food or if you need to talk, you just call me. You ever share that with anyone? Don't ever say that again. It's pointless. They're never going to call you. There's no need to say it. They will never. Hello? Yeah. Hey, Darren. Hey, I need a lasagna. Can you bring me over some food? I'm hungry right now. They're not going to do that. No one is going to call you and ask you and say, hey, remember whenever you came over to me and you said, hey, if there's anything I need? Well, I need something now. They're not going to say it. The only way you're actually going to minister to them is if you invade their space a little bit. You're going to have to pursue them. You're going to have to go knock on their door. They're not expecting you. They open the door and you go, here's some lasagna. or you call them up and say, hey, I need to get with you this week. Can you get together Thursday or Friday? Friday works? Okay, we're going to get together this time. And then you sit down with them and say, we need to talk. I need to talk to you. What are you going through? Because I'm really interested, because I've been thinking a lot about you and I'm hurting for you. We invade their space, and whenever we stop focusing upon our own pain and we look up and we take our pain out to heal others, that's when God comes in and heals us. When God hurts, when you hurt, God hurts. And when you help someone, God heals you. That's what happens. And if you're nervous going, I don't know if I'm equipped to help someone. I don't know, I'm not good at this stuff. If you've gone through the pain, you're the perfect person. That was your equipping. That was your training ground. You've been through a divorce, you can help someone through a divorce. You've been through bad health news, you can help someone through bad health news. You've been through death, you can help someone that's going through death because you've been there. Well, this young couple was delivering their son. I left the hospital and then came back. They told everyone to stay away. I went twice. I couldn't stay away. I came back to the hospital shortly after they had delivered with a book. I hate when someone gives me a book and I'm going through pain. I had all these books given to me. Hey, I saw this book on a shelf. I haven't read it. Maybe it'll help you. Hey, thank you so much. Yes, I'll add this to the stack over here. Don't ever give someone a book. But this was a special book. This book meant a lot to my wife. We'd been given a lot of books, and this one book came through, and my wife would ask me to read it to her several times that first year. And it was a kid's book. It was called Mama, Please Don't Cry. Is that the title of it? Mama, Please Don't Cry? It's a purple book. You open it up and it's just like a kid's book, like the kids talking almost. And you open it up and it's like, Mama, please don't cry. I went to be with Jesus today. You turn the page. Mama, please don't cry. I got to meet Jesus and he took me to this park or whatever, and then he turns like, Mama, please don't cry. I met Noah today and talked about all the animals. It was really neat. And Mama, please don't cry. You're going to hug me again soon. It's that type of a heart tugger. And there's something about that just grabbed my wife's heart. She wanted me to keep reading that book. And so I went back to the hospital with the book. And I came in, and it was the worst thing I've ever seen. Is to have this two young, a beautiful couple holding their child that was just lifeless. And a child that was both cute and hard to look at. And it was just horrible. I came in, and I just stood next to him. I opened up the book. I just started reading the book to them. Just started reading it while she held her baby. And after I got into reading the book, put the book down, I prayed for them, and I left. And what I did is I just took what seemed to add something. I took something that was beneficial for our life, and I brought it over and I gave it to them to use. And so that's what we do. We take our pain and our suffering and even what we should have had, and we look around and find someone else, and we go and we take ourselves and we shove ourselves into their life to build them up. And that's the time when God gives us strength and purpose and makes all that pain, all that needless pain, be a part of a plan. It had meaning now, and it did something.